Today we got Puff Bar. Let's get it.
Puff Bar was once the most popular vape in the world, but after evading federal laws, marketing their
Bro, like, no joke, Puff Bar walked, bro, so these other vape companies could run. I remember when Puff Bar came out, like 2019, 2018, 2019, somewhere like there. Bro, it blew Juul out the water. And to this day, I feel like Puff Bar still got the best flavors of all time.
vapes to teens and much more, the brand has essentially gone extinct.
That one right
From
there,
making
watermelon,
$3 million
garbage.
a week to being banned by the government, the rise and fall of Puff
They was
Bar is
making $3 million a week, bro. That's crazy.
one of the most interesting stories I've ever seen. But what exactly is that story? How did they go from such a high to such a low? Well, it's best to start with how they got to that
OMG
high,
flavor,
which
I remember
happened
that
rather
one.
quickly. When Puff Bar entered the US market
that
in
pink lemonade
2019,
one?
sales were slow, thanks to Juul dominating the landscape. The disposable brand reached a measly $14,000 in revenue in the last 3 months of 2019. But it didn't stay like that for long.
Yeah,
When
see,
the
like,
FDA
2019
laid the
when it
hammer down on
started blowing.
Juul and got rid of their fruity pod flavors, their customers, which were a lot of children, were looking for alternatives. And they found Puff Bar, which was a disposable vape that hadn't had their flavors banned. This tidal wave of
Puff
new
Bar is
consumers
definitely the
skyrocketed
GOAT
Puff
when it
Bar's
comes to
revenue to
flavors.
3.3 million in January 2020 alone. And eventually, they were making that a week through
Damn,
April.
bro.
However, while Puff Bar was starting to show up in every bar, fraternity, and high school bathroom, parents were getting worried. And it wasn't just the parents. Everyone from lawmakers to anti-vaping groups couldn't help but notice the brand's huge popularity
Bro, it
among the
was
youth.
so
One of the more
poppin',
prominent
like,
voices against
Just
Puff
seeing the packaging and all of that right now just gives me so much nostalgia, bro. Like when vaping started blowing up is when I started like vaping too, bro. Like it was around then when it started popping, like 2020, 2019. Like that's crazy. Just seeing all that packaging, bro, just gives me nostalgia. Seriously.
Bar was Representative Raja Krishnamurti, who spoke out against the brand seemingly nonstop.
When I go to their website and I see strawberry banana and
Oh,
raspberry ice
strawberry
and banana ice
though.
flavors
That
being
strawberry
sold, I know
banana
exactly
was a
who they're
legend,
appealing
bro.
to. It's
That's a
mainly
goat,
kids.
bro.
Now, a lot of you are probably thinking that his argument is straight junk, because adults like flavors too. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of merit to
Well,
that
yeah, but the thing
argument,
is,
but Raja's point
the
of view
flavors
has
bring
some merit
attention
too.
to the
Take a
kids,
look
though.
at one of Puff Bar's ads released during the pandemic. We know that the inside vibes have been quite a challenge. Stay sane with Puff Bar this solo break. We know you'll love it. It's the perfect escape from the back-to-back Zoom calls, parental texts, and work-from-home stress. This, objectively, is targeted at teens, and there were more ads like it, featuring models blowing fat clouds and suggesting that Puff Bar was a great way to relax over spring break. These ads are what eventually
Like, when it
ignited
comes
Raja
down
to
to it,
ask
bro,
the
like,
FDA to ban Puff Bar in late
a
May
lot of
2020.
people that are younger, they
but there
don't
was a
wanna
problem
smoke
with this
no tobacco
request.
flavor. They
No
don't wanna
one knew
smoke
who
cigarettes.
actually owned Puff
You know,
Bar.
so
The
they
brand
wanna
that was
smoke
selling over
something like that.
300,000 vapes a week had never
This is what
publicly
it is.
stated who was behind the brand, not even on its own website. The mysterious nature of Puff Bar was an issue for the FDA because without someone in charge, they couldn't put any blame on anyone. Further digging into the company did reveal some stuff, but it only led to more questions. For example, Puff Bar had two mailing addresses, one at a closed down storefront in Skid Row and another at a random P.O. box in California. So did they
crazy.
even have a
It's just like a
headquarters?
random
There was also a
person that
company
started
that
Puff
kept
Bar
coming
now?
up in my research, Cool Clouds Distribution. The founder, Ume Abu Bakr, claimed that they used to own Puff Bar, but eventually sold it to someone they refused to name. Cool Clouds was also connected to DS Vaping, a vape manufacturer based in Shenzhen, China that had a license to make Puff Bar branded products. But they never claimed to be the owners either. The whole owner situation
That's
felt like
crazy.
one big cat and mouse game that was going nowhere. But in July of 2020, that all changed. It was then that the FDA finally discovered who was behind the brand and sent them an official warning letter to stop selling their products. The letter detailed how Puff Bar never received FDA approval to
See, that's
sell
the
their
thing,
stuff, which was
When it comes down to like these vapes and they're all fruity flavored and stuff, it's like you can go to the liquor store and buy like a grape vodka or like cotton candy vodka or watermelon Smirnoff, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like I get the thing on banning vapes, like the flavored vapes, because it appeals to younger kids, like teenagers. But at the end of the day, even if you ban them, people are still gonna find a way. You know what I'm saying? Like they're still gonna find a way to smoke them, or they're just gonna find something else. Like that's just how it works, bro. Like in school, teenagers are gonna be teenagers. They be hitting their cards in class, all that shit. you ain't gonna officially ban it unless you just stop selling vapes. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I get the point of banning the flavors because it appeals to kids, but at the same time, it's like there's kids that smoke fucking cigarettes in high school too, bro. You know. But these
required
are way
for
more
all vaping
convenient
products on the market. The brand had 15 days to either stop selling their products or submit a request for approval, and if they didn't comply, they would be faced with massive fines. But who would have to pay for those fines? In other words, who were the owners of Puff Bar? Ladies and gentlemen, meet Patrick Beltman and Nick Manaz, two 27-year-olds from Los Angeles, California.
made
After
so
months
much
of
money
digging
off
into
this
the
shit,
company,
for
the
real.
FDA finally found these two to be the sole owners of Puff Bar, and it turned out the duo had quite the history. Patrick and Nick had been friends since childhood and first got their start in the vaping industry with their website eliquidshop.com, a company they started while attending
See,
community
like, that's
college.
the thing
They
too,
were
is like there's those two, right? Where they sell e-liquid. They have flavors. They straight have flavors. You can go to Smoke Shop right now and buy e-liquid for the big ass mod that got flavor to it. So it's like, I just don't get it.
later hired to run Puff Bar's website
these
and
are-
eventually
vapes
took over
are-
the company
like, they
in
have
mid
stronger
2020,
nicotine for
around the
sure,
same
but-
time the FDA sent their letter. And after they took over, Nick and Patrick made a shit ton of money, and
Oh,
it seemed
yeah.
like they were spending it wisely. Legal documents revealed that the duo bought a $1.7 million mansion in Los Angeles, and all over their social media, Patrick and Nick can be seen flexing multiple Lamborghinis, Mercedes, and many, many, many more cars. So, these were the guys. They had full ownership in Puff Bar and were clearly doing well for
wonder where
themselves.
Puff
But
Bar's
now,
at
with
now.
the FDA forcing them to stop selling their vapes, what were they gonna do? Could they leave the fast life behind and comply with the government? Well, shockingly, the answer is yes. On July 13th, 2020, Puff Bar removed all of their products off their website and stopped selling to
crazy.
distributors. This move obviously affected
only
their
sell them in
sales,
Europe
bringing
now or
Puff
what?
Bar down from being the #1 highest selling disposable to #3. However, this didn't seem to stop the duo. If anything, it
And that's the
motivated
thing I
them
don't
going
get. How
into
the hell is
2021
Puff Bar
and
banned, but
forced
you
them to
still
come
got,
up
like,
with a plan. A plan
geek
that
bars,
was
and you got,
admittedly
like,
genius.
Cali bars,
They
and all
deemed
these
2021
different
to
type
be
of
the
bars.
year of transparency. What that meant
But
was going on a massive
Puff
press
Bar
run and
is
attempting to
illegal.
clear up the mysterious nature of Puff Bar.
We're aware
makes
that there is a
sense.
lot of mystery and there was a lot of shadowiness before. Us being here right now talking with you guys is our first step in kind of really like building the trust with our
That makes
consumers.
sense.
They sat down with multiple news organizations, with lawyers off camera, and were more than happy to answer any questions they had about the company. But these orgs soon realized that something sketchy was up. It turned out there was a lot Nick and Patrick couldn't talk about, like who the previous owners were or who hired them.
The original co-founding partners decided that they didn't want to continue the brand in the direction that we saw most fit, and that's where we kind of came into full
And
control.
when did that meeting happen?
I would say like late to mid 2020.
And who were these prior partners? Can you say?
No, we can't say.
How much money did it cost to buy the trademark and the business that is Puff Bar?
Yeah, that's part of our NDA, unfortunately.
What they were able to talk about is where Puff Bar came from.
So it's a Chinese manufacturer that had kind of put this brand package together.
all these
The
vapes come
brand
from
was set up by a
China.
Chinese company? I didn't know that.
I would say like the brand
All
was
vapes come
founded
from
with
China.
the collaboration of U.S. personnel kind of like giving the input.
The issue of underage vaping came
So
up
all
as
of them
well,
were.
and the duo claimed it wasn't their fault.
Nick and Patrick agree it's a problem.
I think it's horrible.
it's-
I guess I'm sorry to hear
Like,
that.
let's just be honest here, bro. It's not. Alcohol isn't legal for you until you're 21. That doesn't stop a teenager from begging their fucking older cousin to go buy him a bottle, or just going to the gas station and asking some dude to buy him some beer. Like it's always been like that. Just because kids are doing it doesn't mean it's the company's fault. Yeah, they can play some tricks into getting the kids to fall for them, but at the same time, it's not like you can be like, oh, that's all their fault. That's just me, that's just my opinion when it comes to this, because it's like at the end of the day, bro, teenagers are gonna be teenagers. They smoke cigarettes, they drink alcohol, they smoke weed. Like, teenagers are gonna be teenagers. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Not necessarily their problem.
I think the government's need to do a better job on going after retailers and the distribution channels that are actually pushing these products out there.
So
That's true,
these
too,
interviews
because,
didn't
like,
clear up.
you can, like, bro, when I was 16, I go to a smoke shop out here, walk in there, they're not IDing me because they know me, whatever. They're like, oh, he's cool, he's just trying to buy some reps, smoke some, you know. That's just how it is, bro. You can be a teenager and you can find a smoke shop that ain't gonna ID you because you look old enough, or they just trust you. There's a lot of them everywhere in the hoods of all America, bro. I'm telling you that right now. So even if you, like, you can buy liquor like that, you know? So it's I mean, they got
much.
a point. It's
We
not
know
really
Puff
all
Bar
their
came
fault.
from a Chinese company, but nothing much else. However,
come from
all of
Chinese
that
companies.
wouldn't matter because in March 2021, a new problem arose. Puff Bar was back. Just 9 months after they pulled their products off shelves, Puff Bar put them back on. But how could they do this? They were banned from selling their vapes, right? Well, not anymore, thanks to a sneaky legal loophole. To explain in simple terms, the
Synthetic
FDA has
nicotine,
authority
right?
to regulate tobacco-derived nicotine products, which includes brands like Juul and Puff Bar. But what Nick and Patrick realized is that if they simply switched their nicotine juice formula, the FDA wouldn't have any authority over them. And that's exactly what they did. The duo produced a new formula of juice that contained synthetically derived nicotine, which was just a bunch of chemicals, but crucially didn't contain any nicotine derived from a tobacco plant. This, technically speaking, meant that Puff Bar was now not considered a tobacco-derived.
This product contains tobacco-free nicotine. That's crazy. That's crazy that they came up with. That's probably what all these vapes are doing now. That's really what all these vapes are doing now. That is crazy. What?
Nicotine product, and
So is Puff Bar
therefore
still
didn't
around?
have to abide by the FDA's rules. This, obviously, was a very suspect move from Nick and Patrick, making them look like they were trying to evade the FDA. But according to them, they did it for a different reason. They tried explaining how they switched the formula simply for a better user experience and nothing else.
These loopholes have caused us to look for alternative ways to still continue to provide our consumers and customers with the products that they need.
We see more enjoyment with our product now.
However, the opposing side saw right through their bullshit.
Bunk. Total bunk. That's not why they're doing it.
The FDA has just been slow and tentative, and now they're getting punked by two 27-year-olds.
Would you call this a loophole that companies are rushing through to stay on the market?
It is an Oklahoma land rush going through a very wide loophole.
I will make sure that it's crystal clear in the law that they should and can regulate in this area.
Raja was talking about the FDA and how he was planning on creating a new law that would allow them to regulate synthetic nicotine products. But unfortunately for him, the FDA had other plans. They wanted to regulate synthetic nicotine companies on a case-by-case basis and proceed with caution on what to do with companies like Puff Bar. To put it another way, Nick and Patrick got off scot-free and we're now back in business selling
That's
Puff
crazy.
Bars. And they sold a lot of them in 2021. The brand shot back up as the top-selling disposable vape, doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And parallel to their financial success, Puff Bar was also finding a lot of success on TikTok and just social media in general, where millions of teens were starting to form a culture around the brand. Videos of skits, stories, product reviews, and I guess showing off were garnering hundreds of millions of
crazy,
views. It seemed like the hype behind Puff Bar was never going to stop, and the duo behind the brand were going to reap the benefits for years to come. But alas, after a year of planning, the FDA was finally ready to lay the hammer down. In March 2022, the Consolidated Appropriations Act was passed, a law that allowed the FDA to regulate synthetic nicotine. This meant that all companies who use synthetic, including Puff Bar, were now back under regulation of the FDA, and the organization wasted no time with their newfound authority. Nick and Patrick were sent another warning from the FDA, detailing once again that they had 15 days to submit a request for approval or stop selling their products. The only difference this time around was that this letter seemed to do the trick. The duo no longer sells nicotine vapes, at least in the US, and have since pivoted to selling Zero Nic and Delta 8 products. And nowadays,
Delta
teens aren't using
8,
Puff
bro.
Bars anymore, so problem solved. But there's still a gazillion fruity disposables
That's what
on the
I'm
market,
saying.
and they're in every gas station everywhere. So did the FDA do something good here? I don't know. Puff Bar was once the
Bro.
most popular.
That's crazy that they try to do a little loophole to, be like, oh, they want to ban us, da-da-da-da. We gonna do this. Crazy. If y'all watch to the end, appreciate you, gang, and I'll see you on the next one, chat.